Aloha and welcome. I'm Dwayne Sampson. I will be the facilitator of this webinar, and it's going to be on Waikele invasive parakeets. Appreciate everybody taking their time out from their busy schedules to be a part of this. And I want to thank our great speaker, Dr. Liu, who is, Amy's still in the waiting room. Dr. Louis Jones, he is 35-year plus resident of Hawaii and began his career 20 years ago in an Army officer in Hawaii, returning multiple tours. He's finished his career in 2011. Sorry for the minor technical difficulties. All right, here we go. I want to introduce our great speaker today, and mahalo to him for taking out his busy time. Many things on his plate, but he decided to come out and help us today. Dr. Louis Jones, he is a 35-year resident of Hawaii and began his career 20 years military artillery officer in Hawaii, returning from multiple tours. He's finished his career in 2011 after serving 4 years in the Middle East combat zone. Upon retirement, he added a PhD in organizational leadership and an MBA from HBU to his previous master's in information management from HBU. He is a small business owner and has presided on the Fairway Village Board of Directors for the last 7 years. He's presently serving as their president. I want to thank him very much, with much aloha, for coming out and sharing his time with us. And I also want to take time out to say mahalo to Kristen, who is our office executive administrator, who's put this all together and always is behind the scenes and doesn't want to be on camera. But mahalo to you, Kristen. And with further ado, I'm going to let Dr. Liu start sharing his screen and start up. I think, Dr. Liu, you got to share your screen. Yeah, there you go.
Aloha, everybody. How you doing this morning? First and foremost, I want to say this is not a briefing. I have some slides to stimulate your thought, but I really want you to ask questions. If you leave it up to me, I will talk you into your sleep with a lot of information that you probably don't need. I'm very close to this subject, and I've been immersed in it for the past 6-7 years. So please interrupt me and ask questions, raise your hands, and Kristen will pick you up. And Kristen, as soon as someone raises their hands, we'll stop and we'll talk and answer questions. This is a discussion forum. And then secondly, if you're here, you're probably playing hooky or you don't have a job. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy this briefing. I will probably take about the next hour of your time, depending on how many questions you have. But I hope that it gives you some information that you didn't know and clarifies a lot of these urban legends I've been hearing around here about these birds, and make us all a united, informed team to solve this problem in some way or another. Rules for this briefing, excuse me, it's not a briefing. For this discussion, I am known for being the WTMI guy. In other words, I will give you way too much information unless you stop me. So when I see hands raising, I think that's probably because I hit the WTMI point. I also try to remove as much emotion as possible from this thing, because this has been a big part of my life, to where my friends call me the Birdman affectionately, which I don't want to own that title. But I try to remove the emotion and keep it to the facts. So without further ado, let's talk about the birds. Back up here. So when I see this bird, It's a beautiful bird. In fact, when I first was on the news, KITV4, 2019, the first thing I said and emphasized is that it's a really beautiful bird. I mean, even if you just hear one of them, the sound that they make is real sweet and peaceful and sounds tropical. But now when I see them, this is all I can see. It's like a horror movie. There's so many birds that it's overwhelming. So they're not cute anymore. They're like the horde. A little bit of humor. Yeah, and then when you go down to your mailbox nowadays, if you're doing it when they come into roost at about 5:30, 6 in the evening, this is what it's like. This is what it feels like. The bird swooping down at you as you go to your mailbox, and poop flying and feathers flying and a lot of stink. So let's talk about these birds. They came from places not here. South America, India, primarily warm climates. They're generally pets that people see them as pets. You don't usually see them in the wild in the United States. They're usually in cages. But wherever you see them and they're in their wild throughout the world, they dominate, they overwhelm, and they ravage the areas that they're in because they're prolific breeders. And in most places where they are doing this, they have no enemies. So they just go too far and they cause problems, as you can see there. So a lot of people think these birds came from a zoo that was like closed in Hawaii. That's a lot of our urban legends for wildlife that's in Hawaii. We had a zoo, it closed and supposedly released all these animals into the wild. That's not true about these birds. These birds came from the 60s, which is surprisingly, when I look at the other areas that I researched in the world, it was around the 50s or 60s. That might be because that's when we started tracking information. But everything I've seen so far is the 60s. Some pets were released, and then they went out in the wild and they had no enemy and they had happiness and unlimited food supply and bred and made a bunch of babies. So we have our flocks in Hawaii now. And their behavior is they come in at sunrise, or they leave at sunrise to go out and feed in different areas around the island, depending on where they are, the region of the island. Then they come back to the same place to roost. They socialize, breed, nest, and poop all night. And then at sunset, they leave again. And they're loud. They are coming now through our chain hard. They started in Kauai and they were attacking their orchards and their farm fields that had fruit that they had for industry. They were eating and destroying them. They've been seen on Maui, and we have 3 large colonies on Oahu. Makiki, this is the central Oahu area where they're breeding here in Waikele, and then parts east, southeast of the island. They're not in the dry areas on the west side, so Officer Dwayne, you're lucky. They're not really messing with Makaha. There's not enough palm trees and fresh fruit. You guys are dry out there. Plus, you guys probably kill them and eat them. So no, they're not on your side of the island, but mainly on the east side, on the windward side, and of course here in central Oahu in beautiful Waikele. So as I mentioned, they're highly prolific without any enemies. So they are cavity breeders. Does anybody know what a cavity breeder is? And don't tell me your kids. There's a famous cavity breeder. Well, it popped up there already. Woody woodpecker. So woodpeckers, they peck on the tree to make a hole in it so they can nest. They don't build nests, they make a hole in a tree. So these birds, these parakeets, are the same, but they're not equipped with something to knock a hole in a tree. They use another hole that's already in existence. And we'll talk about that later in this briefing. But basically, they have about 4 chicks, and because there's no threat to them and they're healthy breeders, they have almost a 0 mortality rate. So they're having 4 healthy, successful fledglings leave their nests each 8 months. In other places, it's March and November, but because our environment is so conducive to their breeding, they breed year round. And unfortunately, everyone knows that wherever a bird is born, they will always go back there and try to make babies in that same area. That's called imprinting. And we have a further challenge because these birds that we're breeding now are imprinted, and they will always try to come back to the areas where they left. And they live for 35 years. And these birds have no enemies, so they're going to live for 35 years here in Hawaii, which means there's going to be more born than are dying. That's called exponential growth. So this is what cavity breeders are. So our royal palm trees, which is their tree of choice, is a very tall tree, which is what they want. They want a tall, safe place, and they want a place that doesn't have like street lighting or lights at night because it keeps them awake. They sleep when it's dark, and they won't fly when it's dark. So nighttime is their safe, comfortable time, and above ground, they don't have to worry about their nests getting ravaged. And cavity breeders, they basically use the point where the frond, which is the branch of the palm tree, attaches to the trunk. It forms a cup, and they drop their eggs in that cup, and they try to hang out in the tree. So the females sit on the nest, and the male suitors who are waiting for future dates hang out on the palm trees. I mean, on the palm branch, about 25 to 50. I've seen up to 50. And unfortunately, that branch is not made for that weight. These are not small birds, so it tends to make them bow down and break. So right where the branch meets the tree is the frond. No questions so far? Amazing. Okay, moving on. Okay, so let's talk about how they hurt us. The Department of Land and Natural Resources in Hawaii declared them an endangered species. Now, they're also, in other places, you define invasive species, but there is a higher level of invasiveness, which is called injurious. And injurious are called that because, let me see if I can move this out of my way. Because they damage things, they displace things, and they help spread other bad things. So basically, they destroy our fruit because since there's an abundance of open mic, since there's an abundance of fruit, they go and bite one bite out of each fruit. So that's a waste. They just destroy the fruit, basically. And then as they're eating other types of fruit, for example, our African violet trees, which are beautiful with the red blossoms and their giant trees, but they're extremely invasive. Well, these birds are helping to spread those seeds like vectors because they're pooping after they eat, and wherever they poop, the trees grow. They're also our tiny little pretty birds that we have are not used to fending for themselves. They're used to having their own space. And these bigger birds chase them out of their nesting areas. So if they don't nest, the breed will die off. And we have very delicate, tiny, cute little songbirds, little lemon birds and finches, and these birds are dominating them. Noise damage. So these birds are very efficient flockers, meaning they fly and they fly tight in the large flocks, but they don't hit each other because they scream and squawk to make sure each other's presence is known. And that loud squawking is ear piercing. And when you get a flock of about 100 of them coming through, it's like a highway. And their doo-doo, also known as guano. Guano is when you actually take the poop and use it for fertilizer somewhere, but in general, it's bird poop. It stops people from being able to move in the areas where it drops. It is extremely corrosive because of the content of it, which we'll talk about a little bit later, more than you want to hear probably. It's extremely foul smelling. And I used to have a thing I tried to tell my owners, if you can smell it, you're probably tasting it. It's in your body. It's solid matter on a micro level. For you to smell it, it's going into your body and you can taste it. So you're eating the bird poop. This deters our home sales too. And this is all about money here. to be honest. It's uncomfortable, but there's a lot of uncomfortable things in life. But things that cause you to pay money to stop you from being able to do what you want to do are showstoppers. And here in Hawaii, our owners, especially here in Waikele in our beautiful village, which in 2022 was what, Dwayne? Best community in Hawaii, yes. We have tight budgets and our prices are going higher. And when you add in the cost that I'll show you later in this slide that increase our maintenance fees, that's a threat to your ability to maintain your home. I hate to say it so cheerful, but I want you to understand that this is not just for fun. This is about saving you and your homes and your ability to live comfortably. Bottom line, these birds are also disease vectors. And there's some shocking information I'm going to tell you about the diseases that they carry. You would never guess it unless you were in my briefing on April 3rd. So they have habits. They're very organized. They're very smart birds. They're very religiously structured to their schedule. So when they come in each night, there's a pre-roosting phase. They do certain things and they do it the same way every day. 3 or 4 birds at a time will come in and do the patrol to make sure that there's no other birds in the area before the main body of birds come in here. I'm trying not to use too much military terminology, but these guys are organized like a good military team. The waves are hierarchical waves of birds. So we have bird nesting, bird feeding activities through the day as far as north as Hilamano, mainly in the big giant Kipapa gulch that runs across the island. And then all parts from here, including Patsy Mink Park and the golf courses, wherever there's fruit-bearing trees, they spread out into organized areas. They all spread out and have their own areas that they go to each day. And then each of those areas comes in at a certain time before sunset. The key is they all got to be in before sunset. So as the sun is going down, they start to come in, and this advance party of 3 or 4 bird sorties comes in, and they chase the birds off the property or make the other birds go to ground that are not their kind. And they're very serious about it. Here's a picture of the jet sortie chasing our beautiful frigate birds or cattle birds. It's a big bird, and he could probably beat them down, but they're organized, and they chase him off the property until he crosses our property line, which is the streets that surround our community. It's like there's an invisible line, and then the birds will peel off and turn back and go after another bird to chase. The parrots go back. So tree damage, when I first started looking at these birds in my backyard area in the golf course behind the house, about 6 years ago, I noticed there was about 500 in the trees in the back, which are African violet trees. And that's where they do their pre-roosting. They come in there, socialize before they go into our front of our property where the royal palms are to bed down for the night. And when I was counting, it was about 500 birds. And then after I noticed that that was a thing, that's when I decided to reach out to the press and start actions on it. So, but I have some pictures below at the early stage of the colony when they're roosting in the front of the driveway, which is where our big problem is right now. Bottom line is the trees are weighed down heavily by the birds. Now, this was 5 years ago. Now, imagine the exponential growth from breeding I told you about. So imagine our trees now. And I say imagine because I'll tell you about it a little later, but we cut the branches back really close to where that's not happening anymore, but they're still holding on to those cavities that are attached to the tree. But we have to do preventive maintenance on these trees because those branches you see there, they weigh about 50 pounds a piece. And if they fall, it sounds like a whole tree fell down when they land. The husk is solid, hard, almost hard as like coal wood, I guess you would say. And it's dangerous. And those trees are over sidewalks that our owners walk on. So we have a proactive plan of cutting branches at a rate that's we understand before the birds started doing this damage to the branches. But that tall little skinny branch sticking out that's a new branch coming in. And usually what happens is when one branch comes up, one falls off at the bottom. So at that rate, we have our guys come in and cut the branches before they fall to prevent that from happening. But now, since these birds are all on our branches and they're drooping down low like that, a healthy palm, royal palm, does not droop down like that. The branches jut straight up. And on these trees, they're drooping down low from the weight, which is damaging the branch, which makes them break off prematurely. So we have to pay for a cherry picker to come in there and cut more branches down more frequently. And it's pretty expensive. I mean, I'll try to stay out of the numbers, but just know that expensive is seriously, it's expensive. So now our colony is up to 4,000. So you can imagine how many more birds are on these branches each night if they were still that long. And in the other trees that are in the areas around us, they're on those branches like that. Let's talk about some of these diseases from the guano. And I don't know if you ever knew that, but when a bird poops on your car, their bird poop has pee and poo-poo in it. It's like a devastating combo. And the acid, the uric acid, or from the pee, is very, 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 very corrosive. In fact, I'll talk to you later about how it damaged our mailbox structure that we have. We have centralized mailboxes in the front of our property on a cement slab with metal mailboxes. I'll let you, I'll explain to you the impact that that had on our structures and the cost impact. But as I said earlier, if you can smell it, you can taste it, it's in your olfactory system, and whatever that thing is in your body now. It's attacking your autoimmune system, it's testing your autoimmune system, and it's not a good thing to fail at if your body's trying to fight it. There's a common terminology for anybody who owns parakeets or any kind of bird breeder's disease. It's any respiratory issue from breathing in the dried and vaporized powder version of the droppings. And they can transfer chlamydia. Yes, the STD chlamydia. They can transfer that to you by their poop. So as the droppings dry, and here in Hawaii, the sun is very strong, so it's great for breaking down things during the day while sitting on the ground. And then we have our beautiful trade winds, which help lift that powder or that dusty poop and blows it around. And when you breathe it in, you can contract chlamydia. It's called psittacosis or chlamydiosis, and chlamydia, I can't pronounce that other word, psittaci, whatever it is. All it is bad stuff. So our owners are living in these environments where this poop is vaporizing and blowing into their house from our beautiful trade winds. And then for guys like me who have asthma, the parakeet dander, it looks like the, I don't know if you ever had the dandelion blossom has like the little wishy things you blow and they go all in the air. Well, the feathers are kind of like that consistency. And so as they roost through the night, they're dropping their feathers. And during the day, these feathers blow all across our property. And folks like me are having these issues with breathing in the dander that's attached to these little feathers from their undercoat that they shed through the night. And alveolitis is the reaction you have when you can't breathe because your lungs are filled with fluid from overreacting to the allergens caused by the dander. And then, of course, our old favorite, the cockroach, but the limousine version of it, the big boy with the wings on it, those guys gather wherever the poop's falling because they're opportunists. And where our trees are and the poop is on the ground, the earth moves with so many cockroaches. It's like another Alfred Hitchcock movie that never got made because it is gross. If you step in that area, they're like scrambling, jumping all over your legs, climbing up your legs. And on parts of the sidewalk, they're all over the sidewalk from the birds pooping above there. The sidewalks with these covered with these giant, large, like this size cockroaches running around and reproducing, and a whole new ecosystem is formed under the poop zone. It's gross. That's I guess I'll leave it at that. So the result is, if owners have yards or grass or any entertainment areas under those trees, they're uninhabitable, untrafficable because of the risk and the poop laying around and the smell. And kids and pets are extremely vulnerable. We actually had an owner who the previous owner had trouble with this issue and decided that it was too much and sold their homes because the bird trees were above their place. Even though we made efforts to resolve that issue, they moved and they did not give full disclosure to the person buying the property who had kids and dogs, and they are not happy. They made tearful pleas to the board to try and solve this problem, and we explained to them our challenges. And we're not finished, but we have challenges to not get it done as fast as they want it to be done. So I say pandemic because when you have them there, it's like locusts, you know, if you have crops, these birds, they're pretty until they're not. And surprisingly, well, we know they come from India, so I'm sure you know they got them there. If you Google, you can see tons of these people out there feeding these birds, and it's like hundreds of birds around the people during the day. But my surprising find was a scholarly study about London, which was amazingly similar to us. And I've been to London. It's not a very cool, I mean, it's not a very warm tropical environment. It's actually cold and rainy and crazy winters. But these birds were released there at the same time from ours were in the 60s. And they started about the same numbers as us. The study found that in the first 6 years, they went up to about 13,000. And then at the last check of the study was in 2013, they were up to about 30,000. So that was 10 years ago. So imagine what they are now. This is London. This is parts of London. They're also in San Francisco, Australia. I already mentioned Kauai. They're here and moving. They had sightings in Maui. I don't know what concentrations was there, but they had sightings in Maui. So that's amazing. I mean, and they don't fly that far. So they were other pets that were released or hitchhikers. And they're not really hitchhikers because they move in groups. So the only way you're going to get a few birds somewhere is if we take them in a cage and put them there, because they move in a pack, in a flock. Well, you notice the key word on here is attempts. That means failure. So let me tell you about our failures to get rid of this bird, or at least as Officer Dwayne says, have them go anywhere but here. That didn't work. Shout out to Officer Dwayne. Yeah, it wasn't a fun time, but let's talk about it. First of all, I'll give you some background about the Hawaii laws that facilitate our ability to get rid of these birds. Eradicate's the word to try to use because this is a very touchy subject because they're pretty birds, and I've had a lot of heat from activists of all type. And sorry, you should go to a pig farm or chicken farm and be an activist. But anyway, Hawaii intends for us to treat this as an injurious species, meaning it's dangerous for our harmonious flora and fauna here. And with that said, that opens the door to us doing some things to get rid of it. You don't need a permit to remove the birds from your, I say remove, but you get what I'm saying, to get the birds off your private property. They are assisting with agricultural areas, but they emphasize that their priority is agricultural areas. Unfortunately, Waikele is not an agricultural area, but we have, I think, more precious things like human beings that we should be concerned with. But right now, the priority is for ag. That's why Kauai is getting assistance and we're not. And these are the blah, blah, blah statutes that say, here's why you can, in case you're one and you want to look it up for yourself. Bottom line is you can kill them. You can use lethal means on your property, as long as you use a legal lethal means, which in our case we used air guns. And I got written affirmation after spending 5 years of going door to door, not literally, but phone wise, desk to desk, through the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Ag immediately dismissed me, and then Department of Health. And I got to the point where I kind of knew everybody's names. And I, as they say now, I had receipts. I had my little green cloth bound book that I used to use as a lieutenant in the Army. And I did the same approach as a good staff officer. and I recorded times and names and what they told me I could and could not do. And I noted in each one, can you just tell me that in writing? And I could not get it in writing because no one wanted to deal with or be accountable for whatever I did to these birds, because they knew a military guy had a plan and they knew there was going to have some action. So I could not get them to sign off until after about 3.5 years, actually, someone actually put it in writing for me, and that was game on. So, but before I did anything lethal, my board coached me on making sure we did non-lethal first. And so these are the measures we tried. Again, I forgot to mention, I did an interview with Cat TV and it was a Sunday night, and I was the lead story on a Sunday night, or the top two stories on a Sunday night. So it shows you how bad of a night that must have been for me to be a story with parakeets, but I was on the news. They came to my house after I sent a letter to the producer saying, hey, do you know there's parakeets here? And it's like a horde of parakeets. And the anchor said, no, I never heard that. And the next day they sent a person to interview me in my backyard and went over the property and was totally shocked. So then they put on the news, and that I hope to have momentum from that when I did it, to get action from the state. However, that did not work. So I came to my Waikele Community Association, who I'm doing this presentation for today. And I tried to get the board to join me in this effort to unite all the other presidents. I'm president of Fairway Village, and there's 20 other villages and communities in the greater Waikele community. And I figured we could probably come together and knock this out. Plus, I was thinking, if you burn the fields, the rats run to the next field. So when I get rid of these guys, they're going to go to those pretty palm trees and on my fellow president's property. And I didn't want to be that guy. So I tried to join us together, and that didn't work because it was too ugly of a topic. So we went on and did it on our own. And we spent a lot of money doing these things, but basically we tried cages, and we put cages in the trees. And wherever there was a cage in a tree, that little advanced part I told you about became the guard of the tree. So we put a cage in the bottom of the tree, and no birds touched the entire tree because the parakeet patrol chased every bird that came in and tried to land in that tree. And it wasn't even in the top of the tree. It's down at the bottom of the tree. That's how smart they are. And the jury's out on whether that cage would hold it anyway, because their beaks are strong. They're very smart. They can break out of just about anything. So that didn't work. And we had a pest management company doing this for us. Sandwich Island Pest Management, actually. Shout out to Sandwich Island for their persistence and their assistance. Then we tried repellents, which they learned from research in the mainland. It's like a grape scented repellent that hangs like an air freshener, basically. And we put the cherry pickers up in the trees, and we put those repellents, we spaced them out about every 10 feet on the branches. And then these birds systematically figured out the exact distance they could be from them and still reside in the tree, about three feet on each side of the repellent, not occupied, but still hanging out there and harmonious with our repellents that we spent money to put up there. So we were going to take the repellents out of the tree, had the cherry pickers go back up there again. And then when we were taking the repellents off, I noticed the birds were still like calm and not really flying out of the tree, because they don't fly at night. Because if they had enemy, the owl or pu'eo would kill them. So they inherently stay rooted in the dark. So I say, guys, put some gloves on. Why don't you try and grab some and throw in a box? And they did. Unfortunately, the birds squawked really loud, but they were able to just reach and grab these birds and put them in boxes. So we were going to use that as a plan B to get rid of these birds and allow the pest management company to humanely deal with them off of our property. And everybody said, you should sell them. Yeah, this is 4,000 birds. You're not going to make a dent on them trying to sell 4,000 birds, plus the permitting and all the other stuff from the state is not feasible. So just in case you're thinking that. So we grabbed these birds. They squawked pretty loud. Our owners had kids run around out to us and say, hey, you're killing these birds. And they didn't want us to do it because they didn't like hearing that noise at 11 o'clock at night. And basically the next day, there was word all the way to Southern California Humane Society that we were killing baby parakeets. That was our own owners inflicting that on us. So it's a tough, challenging thing to do, especially when you're doing it around inhabited populace where they're watching every move you make, as opposed to being on a pig farm in the countryside somewhere, killing the pigs for food. Then we tried green lasers. Basically, the laser looks like a solid object to a bird that's threatening them, so they're afraid of it and they try to avoid it. And that's when we learned that they have a thing called mobbing. So at sunset, we had green lasers trying to disrupt them as they flew in. But the thing about the parrots is they're willing to sacrifice their lives, and they have designated small groups that are mobs that will go after an enemy that threatens a colony to distract it while the colony goes ahead and beds down anyway. So that's what would happen. They would stay away. They took a little bit longer to roost, and then the mob would come direct towards a laser, and the other birds would say, okay, all clear, and they'd all fly in all of a sudden and still occupy the trees. So they outsmarted us on our green laser approach. Then we tried drones. So you heard me say mobbing. Yes, they mobbed the drones. They knocked the drone out of the sky. They were willing to die for the colony because they're smart and have an organized team. Then we put light sets in the trees to disrupt them. Now, keep in mind, all these measures cost money. We're spending money, and we're an association with a fixed budget. So we don't budget for tens of thousands of dollars to chase birds away each year. We just don't budget for that. Most of you folks aren't doing that in your budget, I'm sure. You have a pest management thing just for roaches and centipedes and rats, but not the flying rats. So we put light sets in the trees. We tried to rent it at first to make sure it worked before we bought our own. And we put the lights in the trees, and the first night they were a little bit louder than normal. But after the second or third night, they pretty much were good. So that was they're just very intelligent. I mean, I'm telling you this not to say it's hopeless. I'm just letting you know what you're dealing with. This is not a stupid pigeon. This is a smart bird with a powerful beak, and a powerful drive to reproduce. So we basically just decided to cut the number of branches down available for them. And then we cut the length of the frond down to like 1/3. It's kind of gross looking. It looks like a injured tree, but I mean, that was our test to see if that could even make a difference. And to do due diligence to try and save the trees, because I'm a tree hugger. I bought my house because of how beautiful that front entrance looks with the royal palm, the majestic royal palms lining the driveway. You can see them from Cam Highway before you even approach the property. That's what got me to go there. And in the interest of owners, we want to try and make this place good for people to sell their homes. So that's something I wanted to try and keep there, as well as the board members and as well as the rest of the owners. But other than removing these birds, the only solution is that I can see so far is to remove those trees. This was our goal when we started. We just wanted to divert the flock. We didn't try to kill the entire flock. We wanted to have a credible threat to them that this is not a nice place to raise your babies. We wanted to try and get the rest of the Waikele community to be part of it and gain consent so we could have a unified front on it. And for our case on our property, we enlisted the help of a professional airgun team. These guys followed me from the day I was on the news and offered their services for free until I got this approval from the state to actually use the air guns on our private property. These guys would show me videos of shooting playing cards at 100 feet away, sideways, and hitting it. They have all sizes of pellets. They had hollow point pellets that made it humane to shoot the birds. Because birds, you can shoot through them and they'll keep flying. And this made sure that they didn't go somewhere and suffer. We had WCA try to give us help with the state legislature, and the Waikele Community Association actually did a poll for the owners, got people to sign and send something to the state. That didn't really go anywhere. And then we were going to try and, once we got rid of the flock on our property, have a recurring maintenance plan of coming back and making sure they weren't coming back. That was our original goal.
Dr. Lusar, we have Dustin Lee from Rep Chun's office who has a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah. So I mean, Representative Chan lives in this association, and this is kind of news to me at least, but it sounds like you've already tried to work with the state. Is there, what can we do here, from a legislative standpoint that it's, I mean, you seem to know this issue. So what can we do to help?
So legislatively, they've done the right thing. The Hawaii revised statutes are already good. Like a lot of laws we have in Hawaii, they give you a law, but there's no meat, there's no bite behind it. And the bite behind it would be for the state to come up with a plan to go attack these colonies, whatever way they decide. But besides telling us, hey, you guys can handle it, it's legal for you to handle it, that's great. That's not realistic, that's not feasible. I mean, I think in Kauai, they got impatient and they were hiring companies with the state's approval. But as far as I know, the Kauai help from the state, they're not actually doing the culling. The orchard owners are paying for it, but the state is like facilitating somehow. I'm not sure. But if you want to help, put some meat behind it, not just say, hey, okay, we made a law says it's okay, but then leave it sitting there. That's useless. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And so I guess we can connect a little bit more after this, but throughout the interim, I think it would make sense if we work together on some draft legislation
Absolutely.
and for introduction next year.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And yes, I do have your number.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
It was good seeing you the other day, by the way. But thank you. I appreciate that show of support. And really, as long I'll keep you informed. I'll keep you, whatever you have shortcoming and knowledge for, I'll give you a help. I'll stand beside you if you need to, but you're the man. I mean, I really appreciate that you're stepping in here. Even though you say you're just finding out, doesn't matter. If you find out today and you do something after today, that's really great for the owners of this community, because that means sometime in the future, something will happen. I'm not sure it's going to be the near future, but if there's an end at some point to this, or slowing it down at some point, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So culling is, if you haven't heard of it, there are places all over the world where man has tipped the scales of the balance of nature and has caused it to have problems. For example, if we cut back forests where deer live, deer need to sharpen their antlers, and they do eat parts of the bark off, and they pretty much destroy trees from their habits. But they've been in places where it didn't threaten the forest. But we cut the forest back and we displace the deer. So one, they're overpopulating the areas. And two, they're killing off the trees. And the trees are an essential part of our ecosystem for us to sustain life on this planet. So, deer, trees. So what they'll do is they'll go out and have seasons where they hunt the deer and reduce the population. That's culling. It's reducing any threat to our environment, basically, because there's too much. There's an imbalance. It's easier in the mainland because, as the last bullet says, there's less populated areas, so people don't have to see the gore, that happens. But gore happens to that chicken you're eating, and gore happens to that food you're eating, but you don't get to see it. And if you ever go to a plant where they're doing it, or a farm, you probably won't eat it anymore. But that's reality. So our reality here is this cute little bird needs to be culled. And as I mentioned, urban areas present a problem. The land in Kauai was kind of isolated, so they could pretty much do what they want to do. Our land is private here, but we got homeowners all over it, and you can see from the street what's happening, which happened to us when we did it. And it's not as pretty. So it's a challenge. I'm not saying that it cannot be done. It's just a challenge in an urban environment, even though we had a very good plan for urban environments. It didn't work. So we did use air guns, and there's laws that pretty much say you can shoot an air gun on private property for recreational purposes. You can't carry it in public for people to see. And you have to make sure that whatever you shoot out of your air gun lands on your property. Too easy. So, I mean, we had that covered. I'm not saying I'm like an infantryman, but I'm an artillery guy past, and what we do is manage the effects of our rounds, where they land, how they land, and angles of where they're going. So I kind of had that wired, and I had my team versed in it through a deliberate process. And it failed even though we had written permission from the LNR to do it. We had the full cooperation of the police. We did military level rehearsals. I did walk rehearsals with my team and my staff. I did a slide rehearsal. We did safety rehearsals. I actually had them signing risk management, federal risk management forms for their knowledge of all the safety requirements and restrictions we had for this event, which was eye-opening for a lot of them. And we hired professionals to do our parts of it. For bio waste removal, we had a professional on the site, and we had, of course, our air gun team for that. WCA was kind enough to provide us with, you know, they put meat in the battle. I mean, they were right there. Officer Dwayne and Malcolm were on site with us. They were with us through rehearsals. We were there in the wee hours of the night till 1 and 2 in the morning, and they stood by us, helped us manage traffic control. And thank you again. I can't thank you enough for that. I mean, you guys were here in late hours, being part of our team. I mean, that really meant a lot to all of us. The first day we did it, we used air guns. They're silent. They are not noisy, but these guys had silencers. They had scopes. We waited till low traffic hour in our property after we warned all the owners, and we went door to door to make sure they knew, and then we executed. And it was a planned 1 hour event, and it was successful. Everybody did their part like clockwork. No one even knew we were out there the first night. And then the second night, there was an owner on the site who we went to their door, as we did. All the owners in the area went door to door, in addition to the 2-year campaign of information and build up and voting, and 210 owners electing to say, let's do this because we're tired of it. One of the owners in the area decided no, and they came out, they screamed and acted crazy, saying stop killing the birds, and they physically put their bodies in front of the guns. It was like a TV protest. You know, these are owners of our own association, sadly. And unfortunately, they used the tactics of the day, which is, you know, create your own truth. Unfortunately, they pulled the same news crew in that interviewed me 5 years ago, except they needed permission to come on the property from me as the president. And I had a press kit available for them, but they filmed off the edge of the property right in front of our sign. And these owners went down and told them that poachers that they didn't know who they were on our property shooting the birds. And they filmed it, and the newscast took that and put it on a 5 o'clock news report showing Officer Dwayne, Malcolm, and all of our staff in fluorescent vests with the police down the street as poachers. And at that point, you know, it was beyond repair. I mean, we're just a small association. We have a lawyer. We were upset. We were gonna do a legal battle. And I was like, you know what? We're fighting our own family in public. It's not worth it. Even if it's one couple who just was on the property for a year, by the way, they didn't even weren't aware of the growth of the problem. It wasn't worth it. So, I mean, that's the challenge of doing this in an urban, very visible environment. It only takes one. And, you know, all my friends were me, why are you doing this? And it's only going to take one person to shut it down. Yeah, I got it. But I have to do my due diligence to support the needs of our owners and attempt to resolve this problem within our means. And that was within our means. So, you know, at that point, it would have worked. But I will tell you now, that methodology is probably, it's too far, because the population is too large. It's too well rooted. We'd have to be on a coordinated effort from all the communities, and that's just too much. That's a bridge too far, in my opinion. Not to kill this whole idea, but just from what I see and the amount of friction and the amount of effort put into it and the result from it, we spend a lot of money and time. And I'm not sure if all the other associations have that time and money and patience. But if that's what the whole Waikele community wants to do, I'm in. So ongoing costs, my one example that I gave during my newscast was the mailboxes, which I wanted to have people see a snapshot of the amount of money that this can cost. The mailboxes had to be demoed because of the acidic guano ate through the metal boxes, so they would no longer be viable for U.S. Postal Service security. And we had to demo the site, which is a cement pad with mailbox structure to fit all of our 210 mailboxes there and parcel lockers. And we had to rebuild it. So that was about $30,000. We cut down the palm trees above it. And then we had to get that thing recertified by U.S. Postal Service for about $10,000. So that's $100,000 because some birds. In an environment and a situation where cost is critical, and that's unacceptable. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
Have you tried?
I'm sorry. Who are
fertility
you?
control?
Who are you, sir? I'm sorry.
This is Boyd Maramoto with Signatures.
Hi. How you doing?
Hi.
Okay. Question.
Yeah, I put my question in the chat, but apparently nobody's checking it. Question I had was, I didn't see on your list of controls if you use fertility controls.
Yeah. So again, as I mentioned about cost. So the previous amount we did was about $100,000. Fertility control is very expensive. It's very controversial because you have to have a bio-tailored fertility control that will only affect these parakeets. This is costly stuff. So no, we did not. And that's a type of thing, if you ask me, that's a state level activity. That's someone with bigger pockets, because fertility control has to be not just at Fairway Village in Waikele. It has to be all the populations coordinated, or else you're going to waste your effort. Because whatever hole you make in the reproduction in our area, as soon as there's a void, there's the other expanding colonies are just going to come over here and take that up. So that's a statewide thing to do, and they'll have to deal with the controversy and the challenge of not impacting any of our other delicate species here, and have a tailored solution tailored to parakeets. Good question.
I also had a question and I put it in chat. This is Eileen Chinen.
Yes.
I'm at Park Glen. My question is, why can't the state consider these parakeets illegal, like the way they do with snakes?
They are.
So we should get rid of them.
But as pets, they're legal. Yes,
Even as pets, it's illegal.
Oh, you mean to not allow parakeets to be in Hawaii in any fashion?
Yes.
That's a tough one. I mean, that's a tough one. Yeah, it's an idea. Representative Chun is listening, yeah, it's a tough one to ban pet birds. I see snakes, but pet birds is tough. Other than the fact of a total ban, it's the same level of legislation for the birds as it is for snakes, but there is a total ban for snakes. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Yeah, sell that to my owner that fought already, who has parakeets in their house, by the way. That would be the first place to sell it to, if you want to help me.
Go to the representatives, sir, and then Senate and vote.
That's it. That's it.
And if you can present that and have that, all what you demonstrated to us, in the newspaper, and make it in the news repeatedly, that would be great.
I will continue to. Like I said, I hit the I hit the newscast, and I send this out wherever people want to receive it, and I will continue. If you find an outlet that needs this information that I haven't hit, let me know. I'll send it to them as well. I have a full press kit of the whole history of different things about this bird. If they'd like that, I have it on disc. It's available. I got to the point where I just don't think people cared. I mean, there are big money priorities in Hawaii. I'm aware of it. Even for our association, we had a meeting, and I kind of commandeered our meeting about one cost thing we had, and I said, hey guys, hey, my top three is insurance increases that are threatening our owners and blah blah blah. But the parakeets were on that list of high cost things that threaten our owners' ability to be owners in Hawaii. So I understand that I'm vying for money in a place where the economy is very, 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 very tight. So, but I'm willing to give some more. I just ain't giving any more lethal effort or non-lethal effort pay. But if I can make lethality out of my slide presentations and my packages that I send out, I'll gladly try to help with that.
And
I
that
think
Dustin,
Dustin,
yeah.
Wait, Dustin.
So I don't want to speak too much for the representative, but if I could maybe just kind of give a brief comment to the suggestion about the state. Unfortunately, it is also a money concern for the state. There are all kinds of invasive species issues that the state is dealing with. I believe this is among them. Not 100% sure, but to the extent that that's an issue, you know, all over the place. With all kinds of species, this is just one of many that the state is struggling to keep a hold on.
Okay. Keep in mind, I looked at that list. This is the injurious part of the list, and the injurious part of the list is not as big as the full invasive list. So injurious is the top of the list. This means this is a credible threat to the existence of life in Hawaii as it exists. That's something that needs a priority. Invasive, I get it, but this is injurious. I'm going to keep saying that. Injurious is a higher definition of invasiveness. And I saw the injurious list, and this is it. It's not a big giant list. I can help with that prioritization if you like, or recommendations for prioritization, I should say.
Absolutely, and like I said, we can continue to work on this after this as well.
So I think part of the issue is that there really needs to be an education process to look at this problem, because the first step to problem solving is what? Identifying the problem. And I think a lot of people don't understand the problem because they're, seeing the green flock and it's cute, but there's a problem in there hidden. And I think we need to get excited about this problem while we have ability to do that. Because that window is going away fast to where it's not even going to be feasible for a state budget to deal with it, which really is pretty close right now. But this is an injurious species.
Yeah, I think we had one more question
Okay.
from our Mary Eagle, from one of our directors of our Waikele board. She asked if there's any other subdivisions in Waikele that's being affected by these birds.
Yeah, so I remember when I first started dealing with this, I talked to friends I have in different parts of Waikele, and they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And now that I talk to them, they all see the birds. Now, they may not have a direct roosting site on their property, but they're seeing these birds flocking and gathering in their trees before they go to roost, wherever they're going to roost. And it's spreading from ours because our trees can't handle anymore. So Village on the Greens, all my surrounding communities, my sister communities, they got birds in their trees now. So it's spreading, and it's just like within 2 years when I was asking it now, there's everybody's understanding of it. So it's pretty much going to consume Waikele community here shortly. And the tough part is you go into town and you talk to people about it, and they're like, what? We don't have parakeets in Hawaii, because they're very localized. The flocks are very tight. So they won't see it until the flock expands and runs out of space where they are, because they don't hang out anywhere else, like pigeons. Pigeons and mourning doves are everywhere because they're not flocks. There are individual birds, couples. These are flocks of birds. So it's hard for the rest of Hawaii to see that it's a problem. It's kind of like, we saw the video of Chinatown and the rats in the kitchens. You didn't know it was like that until someone showed you, hey, it's there because it's not in your kitchen. So yeah, it's across other parts of Waikele.
Yeah, I can comment a little bit about that too. Over here in where our office is on Pakela Street, where the bunkers are. Now you can see them during the days. I see them up in our monkey pods, and I also see them eating some of our papayas that the landscapers are growing in a different area. So yes, they are impacting different areas, and even out on the main streets on Lumiao from the shower trees. So now you see shower trees out on Lumiao outside of Fairway Village, and they are pooping on the sidewalks. And it's becoming a big problem outside of your community, and also now it's affecting the public areas and where everybody walks in the evening and during the day, all times of the day. So yes, it is. I believe impacting more than your area and the whole Waikele as a whole. Yeah, and then we do have another question from Kunio Hano. Who can we contact at the Senate who oversees the Department of Agriculture? So the Senate, Michelle Kadani is also the senator that oversees Waikele. So I don't see a rep here on our webinar, but I'm sure we can call Senator Michelle Kadani's office to get some help on the Senate side.
Oh, and I want to say I apologize to Representative Chun's representative. I thought I was talking to Corey for a second. Sorry about that.
Dustin. Yeah, Dustin. Thank you, Dustin.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions in the chat before I'll wrap up here?
I don't see anything else.
Okay, so I'll keep moving on here. So we jet wash for the doo-doo on the sidewalks at least. And it really is like a lost cause because with jet wash, it takes about 3 to 4 hours for the area that's covered. And then the same carpet of poop is overnight. I mean, you got to do it every day. But we do it because we want to at least try. One of our board members said, well, at least can it smell good for a couple of days of the week? And we do that 2 or 3 times a month, a couple $100. Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you the cost of bringing a large crane into your property and trimming treetops. It'll make you sick, but it's a lot of money.
One more comment in the chat. Again, from Kuniohan, I feel like there's a need to be a major unified effort among farmers and residents to, solve this problem. So just a comment that they wrote in there.
Thank you for that. I totally agree. That's where I started. And I'm still not, averse to having it happen, but I tried to start there, and I just, man, we're so conservative in Hawaii, and everybody, no one wants to make waves and until the tsunami's here. So we keep trying. It's a cultural thing. It's nice. Our culture is nice in that way because everybody minds their business, but it's hard when everybody keeps trying to mind their business and don't realize it is their business. So yes, we do need that. Ag folks are already uniting, but there's not a lot of ag in this area. So it's mainly these homeowners on our associations really need to come together and take it serious. Yeah. And I'm not sure how else to do that.
There's one more from Mary again. Have people reported this problem through Honolulu 311 app with the success support and action? I believe the 311 app is a city and county app, so maybe you can comment on that, Dr. Lee.
Yes, people have, and that app works. They answer, but I don't want to talk bad. So anyway, yes,
I believe it's a state more of an agricultural problem.
Yeah, it is.
So the city defers to the state most of the time.
Exactly.
So
city,
there, yeah.
Absolutely right. City and county has limits, and then government has some bureaucracy. So in Hawaii, we got the city and county, which really has a dominating impact where we directly interface, but the state really has the beef.
I do want to just mention really quickly, just ahead of this meeting, I did look into this a little bit. the parakeets here actually fall under DLNR jurisdiction, so it's not Department of Ag. And
Yeah.
I do have a pending request out to them right now.
Thank you
Right,
for
yeah,
that.
that's why I stayed up front. Ag kicked me to the curb right away, so I was dealing with DLNR. I tried to branch out to the Department of Health because I had issues, but it was firmly in DLNR's lane. However, DLNR has about 5 different agencies that deal with vector management and invasive species. So like there's a DOC agency, it's amazing. And so you're gonna do the dance with them as well. Because no one directly says we're the parakeet guys, even though it seems obvious to me. But thank
Right.
you.
There's nothing else in the chat, Dr. Lee. You can keep on going, man.
Okay, all right. We're almost done here. Already discussed that. So for us, we resolved we're going to keep these branches cut to 1/3. Actually, we're already past that now. We already made a resolution to remove our royal palm trees
Sad.
with non-cavity trees. And we're trying to find, we have a couple candidates for a type we're going to replace it with. But it's going to cost because we got to cut this giant, 75-foot tree down. And it comes down in sections, and then it has to have the huge roots removed, and then we have to buy and plant more trees. So we're still paying for this problem. And at the same time, we're finding out that our maintenance fee is going to increase because we had a 115% hike in our insurance. As the insurance companies do a knee-jerk reaction to Lahaina. So we're competing with costs here. But the parrot is dominating. And, when you want to sell your house later, I get it. We got to pay maintenance fees, but the ultimate goal is to be able to sell your house when you're ready to sell it. And these parakeets aren't going to make that easy. So we are going to remove the trees. I'm disappointed, but that's where we ended up. Any questions? Someone's answering those for me. I don't know how to answer if someone's putting their hands up or in the chat. I'm just focused on the screen.
I don't see anything.
That means I answered your questions. That means I had a good
Awesome.
briefing.
Awesome job.
Hey, good. Or you're just in shock because you weren't aware of all this stuff and you're digesting it. And I'm going to get a bunch of calls and emails after this, but that's okay.
Well, with that, we're going to close it up. And I just want to let you guys know that our next NSW meeting next month on the 1st of May, I believe we're going to have the topic that you just mentioned, Dr. Liu, about the outcome of the fire in Lahaina and the impact that insurance companies insurance going to cost every homeowner in the state of Hawaii. And this is something that's you brought up, and I appreciate that. You have the good topics. So we're going to invite people to come out at our next meeting, and we're going to have someone from Atlas Insurance, Shane, come out, and his protege to talk about the impacts of what's happening in the state of Hawaii because of the outcome of Lahaina fire. But we just have one more comment in the chat. Sad that we must cut trees and cost, but problem will only continue to escalate till we get DLNR to get involved and get the information out. So I want to thank you for that comment also. So I'll comment on that there, Dr. Liu.
No, thank you very much. And my goal here, and thank you so much for inviting me, Officer Dwayne. It's always my pleasure. I prefer to do it in person, but this is fun to get the word out because I like to see the faces and hear the laughter of my corny jokes. But I'm glad I'm able to get this out. And thank you for all you folks who had those meaningful comments. And the last one was the perfect one. It sums it up, is we just need to get the state involved to do this, or tell us they're not going to, and we'll have to figure it out on our own. Because telling us that we can do it and not giving us any meat behind it is really disappointing and frustrating. So it's better to know that you have no backup at all and be straight up with it. And then we all, as a people in the state, will come together and figure this out. Because nothing stops us when we decide we want to fix it. Nothing will stop us. That's just how it is. And then for the insurance, thanks so much for that topic for the next show. Shane Choi, he woke me up to this insurance issue, and I spent about 3 or 4 weeks trying to digest it and fight it and have alternatives, and he was there patiently explaining it all to me. And I think he's a good person to help everybody else understand what we're up against and what legislation we might be able to get help from to stop this gouging we're having happen to us, or figure out a solution. But thank you so much, Officer Dwayne.
Right, Dr. Liu, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody coming out. Special mahalo to Dustin Lee out there in Representative Corey Chun's office, and also our director from our board of directors, Mary Higa, for attending, and all of you, whether you're part of Waikele or not, these issues will always be affecting us. And from my desk here in Waikele Community Association, big mahalo, and we'll see you all in the future. Aloha.
Aloha.